Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Gemini season week 3. I can't believe it. Can you believe it? It's flying by for me. Time is weird right now. And when I see other people say that, I find myself annoyed. I'm like, God, that is so minimizing. At the time of me recording this, our nation is in a state of upheaval. Things are crazy right now. And I am going to truck along and share this message with you because I encourage you to continue working on this relationship with yourself. I encourage you, no matter what's going on in the world, to continue to prioritize your self-care and how you are showing up in the world and learning about yourself. So whether that looks like diving into this week's lesson or taking, however you need to take care of yourself, whether that means diving into this week's lesson or taking a break from like the work of it all, whatever it looks like for you, whatever is happening in the world when you're watching this, honor what you need. Gemini is the season of I think, and so far I hope that I've emphasized my desire to have you really being with and being in your experience and exploring how you are reacting to certain things, right? And how you are expressing yourself in certain areas. Gemini really invites us to look at all of that and so much more. And the state of the world is asking us to do the same. So I just want to emphasize that I'm also asking you to do the same. This week's mantra has been a mantra before. And my recommendation is that you really repeat and be in this phrase, I honor my voice. The goal for this week is to look at how you communicate, how you are expressing yourself in your world. So any sort of mantra around honoring what is coming up for you and honoring your voice and making space for you to express your voice. That's really what I want to encourage for you. So we're talking about communication and self-expression because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, which is the planet that that rules communication, really facilitates self-expression. Gemini is both expressive and contemplative. Gemini thinks. Gemini is very intellectual and cognitive, and this is a really good, I don't want to use the word good because it can be really uncomfortable, but it's a potent it's a potent invitation to really be contemplative, to be in your thoughts, to really be in consideration of, what do I think about this? What is coming up for me? Those are the mantras from last week. So for this season, I've really encouraged you to be with your reactions to things, honoring your thoughts about things and noticing how you're reacting, how your nervous system is reacting to things, and empowering yourself with intention and magic to help you grasp power over how you're showing up in the world. That's been my invitation for Gemini season so far. Keep hanging out with all of that. This week, we're going to turn it up a notch. I want to invite you to really take this medicine of evaluating how you are reflected in the world, how you are being in the world. And we're really going to speak on the idea of like how we're reflected in the world and like how we seek ourselves in different ways in the world. That will come up a lot next week during our discussion on the Lovers card. And it's just important to be in that framework already, or be in that space of exploring how am I seeing myself show up in my relationships and be reflected in my relationships. So we're really looking at your comfort with authenticity and your willingness to be vulnerable in authenticity. Authenticity is when your actions are congruent with your beliefs. So we're going to look at later in this lesson, we're going to look at how you can respect yourself even more so that you can show up with more assertiveness in your world. And consider, when are your actions congruent with your beliefs, and when are you not acting in congruence with your beliefs, where your inner self, to some degree of reliability or truth, what degree is your inner self being reflected in how you are showing up in the world? Is how you're showing up in the world congruent with how you feel and what you think and what you believe, what your truth is? That's when you know you're being authentic. So how openly do you reveal yourself? How comfortable do you feel with being seen or heard? How comfortable are you with vulnerability? And can you, maybe let's talk about this in live coaching, or feel free to reach out to me. Can you expand your level of comfort in vulnerability, in being seen? The way to increase your comfort with being vulnerable is to challenge yourself and to really push yourself to be more vulnerable, pushing yourself to be seen. Yeah. So I also want you to consider, how do you want to be perceived in the world? How is it that you want other people to see you? I encourage you to really reflect on this and do kind of a brain dump. Turn off the thinking mind and just let yourself consider, how do you want to be perceived? Being aware of this will help you keep control over ways that you might be overcorrecting or avoiding certain things or feelings or expressing certain things. If you're very preoccupied, or if it's very important to you that you're perceived as smart, for example, how does that hold you back? How does that hold you back, and how does that how does that impact the way you show up in the world, right? Do you overcompensate perhaps? Or do you shut your mouth for fear of not sounding smart? What is important about that, whatever it is for you? What is important about those things that you kind of cling to or fear being perceived as? Why is that important to you? So let's talk about communication. Communication is hard. It's hard. There are so many reasons that we struggle to communicate. On so many different levels too, both like very personal individual levels, and then there's very cultural and societal levels within our homes and our families and other systems like our jobs and our communities. There are fucking seemingly endless barriers to communicating sometimes, especially depending on so many fucking factors. So So many things get in the way of our ability to communicate, whether that's oppression, our worldview, the worldview of others, our own fears or anxieties, being a very passive person, and just not being given the safety or the space to communicate, the not being feeling welcome to communicate. There are so many barriers, both real and perceived, right, to communicating. So I really invite you to explore and consider what things get in your way of communicating and why, both real and perceived. This can be things about your identities, for example, or they could be your family structure, and it could just be about your willingness or your ability to give yourself permission. What barriers, real or perceived, get in the way of your communication and your showing up more authentically in the world? So as as hard as communication is, it is equally imperative. Communication is everything. It cannot be undervalued or underestimated, the power of effective communication and the power of our communication over our experience in the world and our how we're received and our interpersonal relationships. Communication is a major key to that. I can't say the phrase major key without thinking of DJ Khaled. Don't know why. Communication's everything. I'm calling you to challenge yourself to expand your comfort and ability to communicate. I'm calling you to expand your willingness to be vulnerable and be seen. I'm calling you to express yourself more fully, more often, where it's safe, right? Don't put yourself in emotional or physical danger. And challenge yourself to be seen more. Challenge yourself to express yourself more effectively, more accurately, more authentically, more often, whatever more needs to look like for you. Maybe you're a person who is pretty comfortable in vulnerability and really willing to communicate your needs with others and really willing to be seen. I fall a little more on that end of the spectrum these days. Hasn't always been that way. And there are certainly there are major ways that I can improve my communication and major ways that I am challenging myself to be more effective, more helpful, more useful, more authentic, more respectful in my communication. There are, no matter where you fall on the spectrum, assertive, aggressive, passive, anywhere in between. This is, I was gonna say, this is your chance. And that sounds so final. Like, if I don't do the work this week, then I'm gonna lose it by the time cancer season comes around. That's absolutely not what I mean. And I think we're really being challenged and invited to open up the throat chakra, be with ourselves more fully, and speak, use our voices. So good communication requires a delicate balance between getting your needs met and respecting the needs of others. So I have 3 questions for you to consider when you're in a difficult conversation or when you're considering communicating a need or a boundary or a desire to somebody. 3 questions when you're in those interactions. What does the other person need in this interaction? What do I need in this interaction? And what is needed in this interaction to maintain or build my self-respect? Taking time to really logically just break down and consider um, those three things can help kind of provide a roadmap for you on how to approach, how to navigate the conversation. What does the other person need from this? What do I need from this? And what is needed from this in order for me to be able to walk away feeling decently about myself, like being able to respect myself. Because as you'll see, as I continue through this lesson, self-respect is the foundation of good communication. So I'm like, what a surprise that the lesson that I'm teaching is really going to focus on you loving yourself more fully and respecting yourself more fully. Even when I'm talking to you about how to interact more effectively with others, ultimately it comes back to you adopting a healthy relationship with selfishness. So when you're moving throughout the world, whose needs are you prioritizing? And what would happen if you started prioritizing yourself? What are the risks? And what are the benefits? Those three questions. What is the other person needing from this? What am I needing from this? And how can I make sure to maintain my ability or to respect myself? Yeah, again, they just help set the framework for where you need to be approaching a situation. And those three things can help you consider what you are and are not willing to do, compromise, ask for, say yes to. And then while you're in a situation, when you're moving throughout the world, throughout your life, having conversations with others, or just kind of being with yourself, I want you to frequently check in with yourself and ask yourself, is this effective? Check in with, am I being effective right now? Checking in with what your goal is for the conversation frequently can really be helpful, because we so often get really lost in defensiveness or like unnecessary details, or it's common for people to bring up like some past shit when you were trying to talk about today's shit. Bringing yourself back to, am I being effective? Am I showing up effectively right now? Is this behavior getting me what I want? What is my goal? And am I being effective in getting that goal met? And you can always, no matter where you're at, even if you just punched the wall, hopefully it doesn't take you punching a wall before you check in and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm not being effective. What is my goal? What do I need from this conversation? And what do they need from this conversation? Hopefully it doesn't take punching a wall to do so. And you can always like kind of snap out of it and come back to that at any time. You can be in the middle of shouting and shaking and clapping your hands and looking really not cute and really aggressive. You can be right in the thick of it and remind yourself, like, oh, what do I need from this? What do they need from this? And how can I make sure I am effectively meeting those goals in a way that I can respect later? That's everything. So I have three, I want to call them steps. 3 steps or 3 recommendations for you. I guess they're kind of steps, because the first step is pretty foundational, and it's what you will always return to as you're living your life for hopefully many healthy, happy years to come. First, foundationally, build your self-respect. Prioritize your self-respect first and foremost before any other relationship that we have or had or will ever have. First and foremost, we have a relationship with ourselves. And the way that you talk to yourself and to yourselves and the behaviors you choose about how you feel about yourself, the way that you talk about yourself and the behaviors you choose, affect how you feel about yourself. I missed a key word in that. So, this is why I'm so caught up, if you will, or so passionate about the narratives that we have for ourselves and not allowing our brain chemistry to go unchecked, because the way that you talk to yourself and the behaviors that you're engaging in all impact how you feel about yourself. The way you're interpreting the world around you and the way you're interpreting how the world is reacting to you, that all impacts how you feel about yourself. So make choices and act in ways that increase your self-respect only. Self-respect is based in actions that are grounded in our goals and our values and our priorities. That's how you build self-respect, right? By acting in a way that is grounded in your values and your priorities. So respecting yourself provides a foundation for being really effective in how you operate in the world. Respecting yourself is the imperative first step. And then secondly is to treat others with respect and care and interest and validating others and showing up in a way that you can respect. So it's really tight. Like that first step is so foundational. It leaks into all of the other steps, right? And treat others in a way that exemplifies self-respect and respect for them. This allows us to form and nurture meaningful relationships that are enriching to our lives. It allows us to make sure we're being effective when conflict does arise with assholes. Assholes. I said that weird. Let me take a sip. I say this later, and I wrote this to be said later, but it's fitting now. Use words and actions that are respectful of yourself and others. Others do not need to earn your respect. We treat others with respect simply because it builds our own self-worth, and it makes it more likely, or it makes us more capable of forming really nurturing, positive relationships with others. I hear frequently, and I see frequently, people approaching the world from a very defensive place, or a very, very fear-ridden place. Or I see people approaching the world as though the world is not working for them or not on their side. And again, in ways, real and perceived, those things might be true. In fact, it's likely to be true that in some areas of your life, especially if you have any oppressed identities, it's likely that you will be met with opposition, or it's likely that there are times that you will need to fight, in the truest sense of the word, fight for justice or fighting for what you need. Or you might find yourself in disagreements, right? That's a given. And if you are approaching the world from a standpoint, from a worldview that is the likely scenario, it's going to be the likely scenario. I hate to be cliche, and you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, right? You will see more respect when you approach others from a place of really authentic, open, trusting, respectful humanness. I want to challenge you to approach the world with a mindset that others are going to hear you and that others want to make you happy. Others want to please you and see you thrive. Others want to hear what you need from them. Those are some good mantras too. Really sitting in exploring beliefs like that. How will you show up differently if you have a belief that others want to help you? Others want to hear how they can show up even better for you. Would if that were true, would it give you a little more permission to ask for what you need? Would it help you to put down your sword and your shield before you approach certain topics or situations or questions, whatever? Okay, the third step, or the third maybe like principle of good communication, remember the first is self-respect and the second is respect for others, which like the sub-second principle, I forgot already what I called it. The sub-second principle is adjusting your mindset to that of a worldview that others are here to help you create happiness for yourself. They're not here to fight you. You don't have to approach the world with a fighting stance. The third principle is to learn assertiveness that is self-focused. Remember that you have a right, you have a birthright to getting your wants and needs met more reliably. You have a right to say no to that which does not serve you or align for you, and just plain that which you don't want to do. You have a right to say no. And you have a right to set boundaries with others and to negotiate those boundaries when needed. Focus on building confidence and competence in your assertiveness. I want to reemphasize those rights. You have a right to getting your needs and wants met more reliably. You have a right to say no when something doesn't align or when you just plain don't fucking feel like it. And you have a right to set boundaries with others and to negotiate those boundaries when needed. And I encourage you to really honor those rights by showing up with those principles that I just mentioned before, right? Or by showing up with those first two principles. Remember, if you're acting from a place of self-respect and respect for others, you especially have a right to those things. So some rules. I have some rules for you when it comes to communication. Okay, first is to take a non-judgmental stance with yourself and others. Avoid really judgmental interpretations of yourself and others and experiences that you're going through. Try to really just look at the data of situations without placing an interpretation or judgment on those things. Don't approach, avoid extremes, for example, we get kind of caught up in thinking in extremes when we say things like, this always happens, nobody ever listens to me, I'm a doormat, people always trample over me. Those things might feel really true, and it's important to avoid thinking in extremes like that. Check your narrative. Be careful about your narrative and how you're kind of like setting the stage for how you're going to present in the world. Check your narrative. Make sure you're not coming in too hot. Make sure you're not coming in too cold. In dialectical behavioral therapy, I read the phrase maintaining fair weather without storms during conversations. That should be the goal. And that doesn't mean passivity. It means keeping a mindset or keeping an attitude, keeping an energy of fair weather without any storms. That's a big ask because, as I mentioned last week, or as we really dove into last week, we have a nervous system, we have reactions to things, we pick up on things and we respond to things, and sometimes a storm's a brewing, right? And you will most likely be most effective if you can maybe like utilize the data from that storm in your conversation without letting the storm sweep away the effectiveness of the conversation. Hope that makes sense. Use words and actions that are respectful of yourself and others. Remember that you do not need to earn the respect of others. Remember to just approach others with a sense of respect, because that builds your own self-respect. When you are moving throughout the world respecting others, it's a little easier for you to respect yourself. Perhaps, or like a mantra suggestion that I have for you might be to repeat to yourself, respond rather than react. Focus on responding rather than reacting. Can you picture the difference there? For me, responding requires more grounding and more intention than reaction does. I have a rule for you. No more apologies when they're not needed. Ha. No more unneeded apologies. No more apologies for your opinion, for your viewpoints, for disagreeing with others. No more apologies for being you, for having thoughts, for having needs, for having feelings. No more apologies over things that you have no control about. Unneeded apologies erode your self-respect. It erodes your self-respect when you are apologizing for others, or apologizing for things that are beyond your control, or apologizing for things that do not require apology. That also devalues apologies. No more. No more unneeded apologies. Starting now. Let me take a sip because I have another rule for you. I mentioned before the idea of kind of using your priorities and your goals and the values as a roadmap to help you navigate situations, navigate difficult terrain, navigate difficult conversations, or navigate your need to set boundaries. Scary, it's hard. I just want to remind you of that. Use your priorities and your goals and your values as a guide to ground yourself in what you know and what you need. Choose behaviors and interactions that build your self-respect. This roadmap is built on what is important to you, what is non-negotiable for you. When you experience conflicts or disagreements, maintain your self-respect by carefully considering what is non-negotiable. What do you need to express here? And remember, like when there are conflicts, you know how to resolve conflicts effectively. You know how to be cool, calm, and collected and express what you need. Fear gets in the way. Well, all kinds of shit gets in the way. And remember, lean back in a knowing that, like, I know how to do this. You know how to do this. Um, the work is practicing, and the work is expanding your comfort with it and learning to be more and more comfortable with conflict and with resolving conflict, and more confident in your ability to do so. Ultimately, be honest with yourself and be honest with others. Use your experiences, use your feelings, use your reactions to things as a gauge and as data to evaluate. The chair is so squeaky, sorry. Use those things to evaluate where you're coming from and how to be most effective. And don't let those things like drive the car. You drive the car. You're the only one with a license. Be honest and authentic in how you're showing up. When you're talking with others, especially if it's hard for you to be seen by others, know that you are, like, remind yourself that you are being genuine and sincere and honest with others. Approach the world from a framework like that, and you can really rest in that truth. You know, you can respect the fact that you're moving throughout the world in a really sincere and honest way. Other people will respect that too, right? Validate those around you. Let them know when you're pleased with them. Let them know when they're doing well. These things will be returned to you and they will be amplified, right? When I tell my partner that I like it when he kisses my forehead, he kisses my forehead more. How great is that? Then I get more forehead kisses. It's wonderful. Validate others. Let them know, hey, I really liked that you texted me yesterday morning. It meant a lot to me. It told me that you care. You know, really authentically validate others, and you will get more reasons to validate others. It's really cool. What you appreciate appreciates. Remember how much power you have over situations. Others reflect what you bring into the room. We've all experienced it. Sometimes it only takes one really bright, bubbly person to enter a room to really shift everyone's energy in that room. I'm not saying that you need to be the bright, bubbly person. You know, sometimes I'm that person. Sometimes I'm very much the wallflower, and wherever you fall is perfect. And remember how much power you have over a room. I remember sitting in therapy feeling so confused and defeated in my relationships. And I really just described myself as the quiet girl who anybody can come talk to, and the quiet girl who kind of observes. And in some ways I am and was really okay with that. And I really honored that about me. And my therapist asked me to zoom out of these situations where I'm identifying as the quiet girl. And I was okay with being the quiet girl and the one who's not like the boisterous, loud one and doesn't, you know, I wasn't very comfortable with the center of attention, those sorts of things. I was okay with that. And yet I was feeling dissatisfied in my relationships. I wasn't feeling very close with other people. I wasn't feeling like my level of and need for friendship was being reciprocated in my relationships. And so my therapist asked me to kind of zoom out and picture those situations from above, and I realized that being the quiet girl was keeping me in the living room when everyone else was in the kitchen. And sure, I was only divided by the little bar, and I was right there with everyone. And how did that look when I was sitting at um, a bar or at a concert or something, and I'm alone in my phone or just with my in my drink, in my beer? um, how does that? How am I showing up? And that was being reflected. I was I was walling myself off. I was keeping myself boxed in. Um, I was the quiet girl, and that was beautiful and wonderful and fine. And I was it was being reflected back to me. Other people were being quiet with me. They didn't feel comfortable coming to me, and because it seemed like I wanted to be kind of alone. Right? I was kind of the loner girl. And it's an anecdotal example, because I really want you to start to recognize the power you have over situations. I was feeling dissatisfied because I was feeling separate from everyone else when I was separating myself from everyone else. I wish I had another example off the top of my head. Others reflect what you bring in. Um, if you walk into a room, this is stereotype warning, alert, alert, stereotype ahead. This is a common stereotype of people with Gemini influence. People say Geminis are like two-faced, or you can't trust what you're seeing. They'll flip on you really quickly. This is something to be cognizant of, right? If you are entering a room and you're trying to appear really bubbly and happy, and what you're bringing into the room on some other level is a bunch of fucking baggage and sadness from your shitty day so far, on some level, that baggage and shittiness and anger and whatever else is very valid and real and worth holding on to, perhaps. Whatever you're bringing into the room is being reflected to you, or could be reflected back to you. So sometimes you'll enter a situation and you'll be like, I just don't get it. People seemed so whatever, and I was really trying to be friendly, being vague. But the point is, again, what you bring into a room will be reflected to you. So my suggestion is to enter a room authentically and hold both. Tell your friends, I've had this shit day, and honestly I'm bringing some baggage to our hangout tonight, and I really want to have a good time. Hold both. Say both. Ask for what you need from them. That's how you'll get what you need. Remember that others can't read your mind. It is your responsibility to let them know how you are, where you are, and what you need. It is no one else's responsibility to read your mind. Not your partners, not your mommies, nobody. Not your counselors. And even things that might seem really obvious, it's your responsibility to communicate them. The example that always comes to mind is one time I caught myself thinking, like, he should know I would like a hug when he enters the house. He should just know. He should know I need a kiss right now. Or I heard a client saying this. She was telling the story of how she was very upset, and there were very valid reasons for her to be so upset. And all she wanted from her mom was a damn hug. That's all she needed. That's all she wanted from her mom. And her mom should have known that. Her mom should have known that's all I need is a hug. And yet, again, like I asked the client to zoom out and evaluate, how were you showing up in that moment? Were you seeming very receptive to a hug, even though deep down it's all you wanted? In this situation, the client was kind of storming around. And she was kind of scary to be around a little bit. It would have taken, her mom couldn't read her mind. It's your responsibility to ask for a hug. It's your responsibility to ask for what you need. It's your responsibility to say, no, I am stretched too thin. And it's your right. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this helps spark some inspiration or some ideas of how you can show up more authentically, how you can show up in the world with a little more courage and a little more willingness to be vulnerable and assertive. I really want you to honor and remember your right to communicate what's going on for you. Please let me know what barriers come up to you being able to do that. I'd love to chat about that and chat through that. Check out the PDF. I think this week, this time, I'm going to include a pretty, I'm not going to like verbatim retype this dialectical behavioral therapy skill. And I'm going to pretty closely describe for you a skill called Dear Man, which I think pretty brilliantly sums up a handful of tips for you and how you can approach conversations most effectively. So along with the reflections that I'm gonna, what am I looking for? Along with the reflections that I'm going to suggest that you kind of hang out in and journal on and pull cards on, I'm also going to include this breakdown of DBT skill Dear Man. It's some good shit. So make sure to peek at that. Let me know how I can support you. And I challenge you, let your loved ones know for the next week or for the rest of Gemini season for the next 2 weeks. I'm really going to be working on my communication and my authenticity and my transparency. Tell them that so that they can really support you in that. Tell the people closest to you. Let me know how I can support you in that. How you can honor, let me know how I can help you honor your voice more. Okay, I think that's all. Love you lots. Take care. I'll see you later.